Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Hi, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to the 4th edition of the Doing Business in Nigeria Conference, DBNC. My name is Linda Oneze, the managing partner of Maurice Andrew Solutions and the convener of this great platform. So why did we decide to have this platform? DBNC was created to ensure that we can have people who have the experience to share with other SMEs. I run a business myself, and I know sometimes it can be really difficult, and sometimes I feel isolated, because not everyone understands the unique hurdles that entrepreneurs face. And I wanted a platform where people can actually inspire others by sharing how they were able to navigate some of the peculiar challenges that we find in our nation, Nigeria. And this is the 4th edition, like I mentioned earlier. We've had the first 2 editions were virtual, and for the first time last year, we had a physical edition here, and we were able to empower one entrepreneur, that's one ID, who won 10,000 USD. So today, I would like you all to just enjoy the moment, and please engage with all the sessions. Like Rotus mentioned, we'll be having keynote addresses, panel discussions, networking sessions, and would also have the business pitch. And I would like to just mention that we could not have grown this far without our partners, our sponsors, people who have supported us over the years, and also you, because I can see some faces who were here last year. So our journey, we cannot have this journey without you, and I'd just like to say thank you once again, and welcome to DBNC 2024.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Come on, a bit of energy. Good morning, everyone. Good stuff. I know it's early on Saturday morning. I haven't had my yam and egg sauce yet, which typically, so this conference is the reason why I'm here to represent our Chief Executive, Wale Adeniyi, but I'll be making his presentation. I lead the private and personal banking at Stanbic IBTC. And as an organization, we do look at, when you talk about doing business in Nigeria, we're an organization itself that does business. We have a parent that invested significant capital into Nigeria. And we also have clients, both on the individual and corporate side, that are doing business in Nigeria, and we help them to navigate it. All right, so this is actually, this is not the slide, but we'll go with this. I had addressed my team last week, and looking at the business of doing business in Nigeria, we always say, how do I bring it to something that is more meaningful? And we look at Nigeria as a country. Nigeria is like climbing a mountain. If you think of a mountaineer, why is Nigeria so exciting? So climbing a big mountain, if you look at it, the GDP of Nigeria, gross domestic product, depending on the exchange rate, is about $475 billion. $475 billion. And if you look at the second slide, we'll go to the second slide. Okay. Actually, let's go back to the first. You don't have the latest one. There is a particular, please, can I get the slide I sent this morning? The slide I sent this morning, that actually, no, you don't have it? Okay, all right, let's go with it. So in Nigeria today, why are we excited about doing business, or the country, before we actually doing the business? Gross domestic product, I said, is $475 billion. We have just about 200 million people. One of my analysts gave us an analysis last week that said 4 states, or let's say 5 states in the north accounts for 54 million. 5 states in the northern Nigeria accounts for 54 million people. That is more than the population of Kenya. So in this country, the size does matter. That is why a lot of companies are excited about coming to Nigeria to do business. The population is 200 plus people. The size of the business is just over 475 billion. If you look at 2010 to 2023, I'm just trying to record the numbers. 4 or 5% of the GDP was telecom. 4% of the GDP of Nigeria in 2010 was telecom, media, and technology. In 2023, it's over 17%. And we know why. Because all of us now are using the broadband, data centers, lots of investments have come in. So the size has increased in terms of the pie, but also the shift in the sectors that are running Nigeria's business. So this is the size, in terms of GDP. The growth, you can see that the country is growing at about 3% per annum. On the population of 200 plus million, the population is growing at 5% per annum. That's 5 million people every year. When we go to church, I go to my church every week. It's like everybody's pregnant. We see pregnant folks around. So you can see that this country, the size of the population, and one of the exciting things that also as part of being part in Nigeria, doing business in Nigeria, is the median age. So in terms of the shape of the population, the median age is 19 years old. 19 years old is the median age. So very young population, a lot of them, and executing in the country. If you look at the growth, the trend, the trend of that population is growing, and then we also see that the mortality rate, the bottom left slide here shows that the women actually outlive the men. The average age of the men is about 55 years old, while the women are 57. So we have to figure out, what the women are doing differently. But I think the general feedback is that, there's more women living, more women living longer than men. Let's go to the next slide. And what is making it complicated? So when I think about climbing a mountain, I said about the mountain, which is the Nigerian mountain. It's not straightforward, right? It's very interesting. The exchange rates we've seen, we all live here, we all know how the exchange rate has increased. 2010, it was 150 naira to the dollar. 150 naira in 2010. In 2023, 2024, we all know what went to about 1,005. So just the exchange rate of doing business, if you have to import, interestingly enough, even if you're not importing, if you want to buy something in the market today, they will tell you that the exchange rate, I said, from buying goat meat, what's going on there? So the exchange, you can see the flatness of that graph is managed exchange rate. And then once it was released, you see how volatile it is. The inflation, you can go to the next slide as well. Actually, this is not my slide. We have to change this, please. But let's carry on too. Yeah, I'm not sure. This is not my slide. But the point is that the inflation is going at about 30 to 35%, which talks to the rate of price increasing. And so the government is actually trying to change that in terms of monetary policy to say, how do we wrestle inflation down? By increasing the exchange rate. By increasing the interest rate. And by increasing interest rate, we know that monthly MPR is at 24.75. You want to encourage more people to save. And by directing the funds from spending to saving. And that would, hopefully, in economic terms, it would wrestle down the inflation. Interest rate is high though, so for doing business, it's going to be costly to borrow. So you therefore have to make sure that you are borrowing with a very clear plan to execute on your strategy. All right. So inflation is going quite high. You want to pull it down. Interest rate is going to be used to pull down inflation, and of course, exchange rate with confidence and with encouraging investors to come in to invest in these T-bills and bonds, it will help drive, encourage investors. Foreign portfolio investors will come through, foreign direct investment will come through, and ultimately it would neutralize the exchange rate. I'll just carry on. I think I do have my slides here. So in the last year, the current government set up to really, macro decisions were made. Very tough decisions were made. One is the portfolio subsidy removal. By removing that portfolio subsidy, it was tough because then you see one of the slides that I have, the petrol PMS prices went up to as high as 600 naira from about 250. So that is pinching the operational environment, but ultimately saving funds from the subsidy and directing those subsidy payments to something more productive is something that was welcome. And of course, the reform of FX, no intervention in FX. The current governor wants free-flowing trade between the buyer and the seller. So let the market determine the price, and it actually happened. I think we've seen now that in the last couple of days, the FX impact has stabilized. Okay, this is the slide. Thank you. Very good. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, and that was you can go back. That was the mountain I was thinking about. That to go to Nigeria, you are climbing a mountain. And the mountain is a big mountain. So I deliberately put this here so that you don't have a version of your own mountain. I know in my church we've said this mountain, remove. Well, you actually have to climb some mountains to grow. That was what I shared with my team last week. So this is the country, Nigeria. The opportunity is massive, and you have to climb it. Why would you not climb? Why are a lot of companies sitting on the edge, not coming into the country? Why is it not that exciting? Because you have to navigate. So to climb a mountain, Wale, who is our chief executive, he actually climbed this mountain, the Kilimanjaro, many years ago with a team. I've told my team as well that we'll go as a team to climb Kilimanjaro. So you need why? Why would you not climb the mountain? One is fear. You are just scared, right? Two is the skill and to be able to navigate. So we can go to the next slide. So therefore, we're encouraging that, and this is why we applaud the conference, which is doing business in Nigeria. It's not easy, but the opportunity is there. And if you can work together, the four things. One is you need to start climbing. Some of us have showed up here for the conference today. One is start climbing the mountain. Okay? Number two is to stay climbing. How would you stay climbing this mountain? You won't give up. The third point is you have to not climb alone. Climb with people, climb with your bankers, climb with advisors. This conference is helping us to set the tone. How do you do something? But work in teams. And the fourth one is, try not to manage detractors. So if you go through this is the slide I was talking about, 472 billion. There are 11 cities that are a million people in Nigeria. This is why we are excited at Stanbic IBTC every morning to say the opportunity is immense. The average age is 18, 19 years old. The adult population is about 62. What else? And the population is growing at 5%, and the country itself, in a worst case scenario, is going to grow at 2.6%. All right? So let's go to the next slide. This is the one that was interesting. So this slide, this basically talks about the years and the shape of the GDP of Nigeria. And if you look, the mining and quarry, which is the oil and gas, the mining of oil and gas, it was 15% in 2010. It is today, as of 2023, is less than 6%. And the reason is that other sectors have come in to be more relevant. So if you point to information and communication, that was about 5% in 2010. It is now 17%. So just talking about more diversification of the GDP across sectors. Let's go to the next slide, please. I think we've shared this already to talk about the pub. So the reforms that had to happen, the deficit in the country is quite large, and the goal is really to reduce that deficit, fiscal deficit, as a percentage of the GDP. So the government, the ministers, they're trying to do that, whereby the fiscal deficit is reducing over time, and you want to improve the GDP growth. That 2010 number shot to 3.4%, and now we're looking at GDP growth about 2.7%. So again, if you create the right environment, we want that GDP growth. But look at the inflation. That is just pretty steep, 37% looking at 2024 or so. So we need to really wrestle down, and that's what through monetary policy, to wrestle down the inflation. Let's go to the next slide, please. Talked about that, remove the subsidy. You're going to make tough decisions. Tough decisions need to be made to change this environment, to change any government, any policy. The economy is a big ship. It's not a speedboat. You got to change, but you got to be resilient and stay close to it. So basically, take off the removal of subsidy for petroleum and removal of FX management. Just keep your hands off. Let the market manage that. Next slide. Okay, and if that happens, we just want to see that with that discipline, the deficit will start to improve, the GDP growth will get better, and the inflation will start tending down. All right, that's really what the outcome should be. Next slide. The adjustment, this is the adjustment. We all live in Lagos, Nigeria, across the country. We've seen the petrol subsidy. Now it takes, I think it's 50,000 or so to fill my tank. I was shocked when my driver said, 50-something thousand. First of all, I said, don't worry, I'll fill my own tank myself. So this thing was around 20,000, now 50,000. Nobody's driving anywhere to go and visit anybody, right? You want to be very disciplined. So that is the cost of just the PMS itself. We are missing the top part of the graph, but that's what this graph is saying. The cost of living is just shooting up quite much, and we need to try and manage that. No matter how much you're earning, you need to manage your expenses. Next slide. This just talks to the volatility of the exchange rate. And hopefully with this level, things are going to again start coming down and start tabling off. Next slide, please. This just talks to the commodity price. So we've seen the maize has gone up in 3 years by 238 naira. I mean, the trending in the graph is just showing that the cost of living is rising. And the last graph on the right talks about the number of poor people. And according to the World Bank, it's just over 104 million as a result of this expensive way of living. So this is the cold, hard facts. How do we now move forward? Let's go to the next slide. Coping mechanism, we've seen the government try to do some large-scale cash transfers of 25,000 per month. This is encouraging, but ultimately you want the population to be able to produce, be able to improve their education, get a better job, but we're still finding out that these are quick palliative solutions that is happening right now. Let's go to the next slide quickly. Again, it talks about the yield. In the last couple of weeks now, we've seen the yields of the government bonds, treasury bills improved. We've seen foreign portfolio investors, inflow funds. If you're seeing 20%, 25% yield, it's mouth-watering for some folks. So we're seeing our clients coming in, investing through the bonds and yields, and it has helped stabilize the FX as well. So that's just what this slide is trying to say. So turning the corner, now even though this top left graph says growth, it is just showing about the pace of growth. So the whole pillar is talking about growth. The message here is that the growth it will go, but it will slow down. All right? It will be at a slower pace. And what needs to happen? One is you need to let's process the production of oil that we're making in Nigeria. The crude oil, let's make sure that you refine them and also increase the number of barrels that are produced. in an environment where the general price of oil rises, Nigeria should be able to take advantage of that price increase in the next couple of years. Infrastructure, no matter what you produce, the cost of, we saw a statistics that the cost of shipping a product from China to Lagos, the shipping from the port to the north is probably the same or more. So, infrastructure just needs to get better, clearing the products, driving, getting through to the ports, getting through to the final destination. So distributing of products should be, more investment. Security, and of course, we talk about mortgage. We're doing a lot of that in Stanbic IBTC, trying to create new mortgage solutions just to enable our individual Nigerians to live a better life. We'll go to the next slide quickly. Now, I think this is one of the last two I have. So the first one is, how do you, make the full turn? We've talked about curbing the inflation, which is just redirecting the spending to savings. And those that will spend, you spend what you actually require. More physical space, so growing the non-oil business. We've seen that in telecom. We want to do more in real estate, in education, and in other sectors to step up the game. And of course, addressing the structural barriers. Just make it easy, a better place to operate. You want to import goods, make it simple, make it transparent. In some countries, make it digital to be able to produce and execute products in the country. Next slide. We took this from the Ministry of Finance, and I think the overarching message is we've talked about population growth at 5% while production growth is at 2.7%. We need to flip that, where production is growing faster than population. That's really what this message is saying. Increase the production of products. So not just extracting products and selling, but extracting products and improving the value to improve the overall productivity, which improves the GDP of the country. The next slide. And of course, encourage foreign portfolio investors. In 2010, we saw that a lot. We worked on a number of transactions at Stanbic IBTC. I think Kellogg came in at that time. Colgate came in at that time. A couple of multinationals came in to invest. What we want is to continue to increase that. So foreign portfolio investors, as I said, a lot of companies are at the border, but they're just dipping their toes in. How do you open up, create the environment to encourage the companies to come in? And of course, overall, once those investments come in, it enables the FX supply. I think that's the last slide. If not, yeah. Thank you very much.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A few weeks ago, when I was approached to give a keynote here on doing business in Nigeria, I asked myself, I hope I'm not going to be talking to investors, because prior to that session, I'd had the opportunity of traveling to look for investors to invest in InterSwitch. And on that trip, I had a very demoralizing experience. It wasn't to actually do a deal. It was what we called a non-deal roadshow. In other words, I was just going to engage potential future investors to tell them about the company so that they get to know more about us, so that by the time there's need for a deal, we are not totally strangers. And every one of them, this was 2 years ago, told me, Mitchell, we know your company, but Nigeria, no. And they said a lot of things. So why am I here today giving a keynote on doing business in Nigeria? Well, I think if anybody is qualified to give that keynote, I think I'm qualified. And why am I qualified? I started InterSwitch 3 years after NYC. So it's been a 22-year journey. Okay? So we've seen a lot of things. And we've seen it in this market. And the company focusing on Nigeria has been quite successful and has used Nigeria as a flywheel to get it to other countries. So when I talk to you about doing business in Nigeria, please take it seriously, because this is somebody who has experienced and is experiencing most of the things that will matter to you in your business. I understand we have to do this next slide thing. So if you don't mind, just bear with me. Now, just to give you some context, many years ago, I was doing my global CEO program, and we were in Brazil. The very first meeting was at night, and a prof from the business school there did a presentation, and he put up a chart that said something quite interesting, gave a list of the top 15 countries by 2050. And I was shocked to find my country, Nigeria, on that list. There were 4 of us from Nigeria in that class. So we started arguing that how did you get Nigeria to this list? How is it possible? It's not possible. And so on and so forth. So just to make peace, he now said, okay, you know what? Let me take my list down and let me ask you. So he picked on me and said, by any standard, any metric whatsoever, which country do you think will be number 1 by 2050? I said, China. He said, okay, nice. Your number 1 agrees with my number 1. Which country will be number 2? I said, maybe India. He said, oh, interesting. Your number 2 agrees with my number 2. And he said, which country will be number 3? I said, maybe the USA. He said, fantastic. So we agree on the first 3. What about number 4, number 5, and so on and so forth? After number 3, I couldn't imagine. But he asked me a question. What metric did you use to rank the top 3? And I suddenly realized that it wasn't because one was a Christian country, or one was an Islamic country, or one did not believe in God. But I came to the conclusion that my ranking must have been influenced by things I've heard over time. Then he now asked me the question, okay, what do they all have in common? I said, maybe population. He said, good. He said, so what will be the population of Nigeria by 2050? We'll find out. So apparently, there is a connection between your population and your economic growth. I'm not an economist, just like the previous speaker said. I'm an engineer by training. But when you sit down with economists in the room, you listen to accountants and so on and so forth, you begin to learn a few things. So what you have on the screen is the ease of doing business ranking. So I thought a good place to start is if you want to do business in any country, you want to ask yourself, how easy is it to do business in that country? Unfortunately, our country is not one of the easiest to do business in. So having this kind of conference that talks about doing business in Nigeria is actually very apt, because there are quite a few things that you need to have if you want to survive in an environment where clearly, as you can see, doing business is not one of the easiest at all. But as you can also see from that chart, sometimes you can go up, you can rise, and sometimes you can come down. Next slide, please. Now, I was in a session many years ago where Bismarck Rewana spoke, and he put up this slide. So this is actually his slide that I stole. And this slide basically talks about the economics pocketbook, ranking countries on the basis of being entrepreneurs, meaning that which countries in the world potentially, by default, the citizens are entrepreneurs. Incidentally, Nigeria is number 1 on that ranking. So I'm beginning the case. Take your population, take your spirit of entrepreneurism, okay, and then begin to look at other factors, and they would arrive at something. Next slide, please. I heard the previous speaker talk about inflation and how it can easily run away. It has before. So one of the things I do is whenever there's a problem, quickly I go back into history to find out, has this happened in Nigeria before, and what was done. Most times when I do this, I just tell myself, relax. This one is even small. So if inflation is 31% now, and you are screaming. Just know that in this your beloved country, inflation was once at 72. In the 80s and 90s. So there's nothing new. It's only new to you, it's not new to the country. And if you go back and study history, you will learn what companies that survived then did to survive. So if you've always avoided history, it's not a wise thing. Sometimes knowing what has happened in the past prepares you for what is going to happen in the future. Next slide. Of course, Naira dollar wahala. A few months back, I went to my uncle that I grew up with. I said, listen, when we were young, during that SAP IMF loan period, I knew things were very tough because we had to do some structural adjustment at home. For the first time, we started counting how many cubes of sugar you could use. We were rationing things in the house. We avoided bread, which was a staple for breakfast. I went to yam. And at some point, we went to cassava bread. Okay? So things have happened in the past. So I asked him, if you look at what happened then and what we're experiencing now, which one do you think was worse? He said, oh, it was then. So we've not seen anything yet. So again, perspective is very important. So you may think today things are terrible, but just be aware that in this same country, people have experienced it before. People are jackpotting. It's not new. People have jackpot before. When I was growing up, there used to be this advert on telly, Andrew, don't check out. Stay and build your country. Okay, so it's not today. Then they call it check out. Today we call it jackpot. But it's the same thing. Okay, people go, people come. But when this happens, what usually happens? A group of people stay in the country and they benefit from it. Okay? We started InterSwitch in 2002. If you go back and look at that chart on inflation and whatever, you discover that 2002 may not have been the best time to start a business. But that was the time the MTNs of the world came into Nigeria too. Okay? Next slide. Now, despite all of these issues, okay, they tell us that when it comes to mental health, Nigeria is still very decent. I know people will say, where did they get their statistics from? Agreed. But it is what we have. They are saying, despite all this wahala, all these troubles, your resilience appears to be something we need to study, because somehow you guys are able to cope and remain happy despite all the issues. Okay? Next slide. So if you look at the companies on the screen, they all started in less than 20 years, maybe 25 years ago. MTN that we're talking about now, everywhere you go, started a few years ago. If you go and look at when they came into Nigeria, it wasn't one of the best times economically. So what brought them to Nigeria? This last December, I came to this landmark and I came to the beach and I was shocked at what I saw. Okay? So the question is, what are the drivers of those things that are making Indians come to the country that you're all running away from? That are bringing Chinese to your country that you're running away from? The Lebanese are coming in. What are they seeing that we who are here are not seeing? And if they're able to attract funds, I don't think they brought their money in. They are being funded by banks in Nigeria. What are they saying to those banks that will allow a bank fund them and not fund you? Personally, I've never believed that capital is the problem. It is what is your case. Okay? So if you want to get a sense for demand for food in a country, maybe you want to go and look at toothpick consumption. Because if you're looking for other data, you may not see it. So the point I'm trying to make is, what is that proxy data that you can use in the absence of real data? Because one complaint we all have is there's no data in Nigeria, there's no data in Nigeria. True, there's no data. I'm not going to create it. But what is that proxy for that data that you're looking for? So if you want to look at food in Nigeria, maybe you want to look at how many toothpicks they are consuming. That data may be there, but you may not know how many, whatever of meat they are going to consume. But you know that there's a connection between toothpick usage and eating of meat. You don't eat pounded yam without meat and go up looking for toothpick. So toothpick consumption is a sign that something happens, you choose something, and something is stuck somewhere. Okay? Next slide. Tropical savanna. A lot of, this is very apt in my business, fintech, but let me just give that example. A lot of companies have failed because they are depending on monies to raise one fund after another fund after another fund. That works very well in Silicon Valley. But when the tropical savanna, you only have one chance. Don't waste it. You may raise your fund once and not be able to raise the second one. I told you 2 years ago, I went around the whole world talking to investors. Everyone told me they're not investing in Nigeria. Not now. A lot of my fintech partners did not know because they've not gone on that trip. But I knew 2 years before that money is not going to come. I didn't understand what was happening to the economy, but this was real life information. But if you had just raised money 2 years ago, you should have known that this money may be the last one you can raise in the next 5 years. So how you use it is important. Another point to note, you don't give a poor man something for free, and then the next day you want to come and charge him for it. He will insult you. He will tell you, you should have left me where I was before. Just like the Israelites said, leave us where we were. So this idea that I can win market share by giving you stuff to use for free, the one that can monetize it, you better be sure your unit economics is right, because you may never be able to monetize it. And that is why a lot of fintechs today will never become profitable. So what am I saying? When you're in the tropical savanna, getting to profitability is the most important thing you must know to do. And what that basically means is that your unit economics, you must get it right from day one. If you miss that, it's better to do something small, become profitable with it, and begin to scale sustainably than go and do something very big, burn cash, get all the customers. The day you want to ask them to pay small, they'll run away, which is what we are seeing in most times. There's a lot you can learn on the streets of Lagos. So when I drive around, I look at people, I look at behaviors. Do not ignore the lessons on the streets of your country. The MBAs are important. They're necessary, but they're not sufficient. What kills most businesses are the things you did not learn in school, but that you have to deal with, especially if you went to school abroad, because most of the examples and cases you did have no relevance with your local environment. Next slide. Control your value chain. This is the trajectory of InterSwitch. No, the next one. Since inception. Because, the previous one. Yes, stay here. This is our trajectory. You see that peak. It happened in March last year. That was the effect of cash not being available. Between you and I did not do any extra work. I sat in my office one day. It was March. I woke up. Transactions went up. No work for me. But my system was able to carry it. But what this told me is that there's still pent-up demand. That if we eliminate cash, only 1 month of activity, all of you knew how to go online. We did not advertise. We did not do anything. You just went online. That demand is still there, which supports by earlier talk about pent-up demand. Okay, next slide. Stop here. No business will have permanent and consistent growth. So the solution is you start one product. When it is doing well, it's the time to begin to invest for your next product, not when it's going to decline. So what I'm trying to show you here is that 3 different products, 3 different growth trajectory, but when you compound all of them, they show you consistent growth. The chart to the right-hand side is true about IntoSwitch. In 2009 and 10, we started experiencing serious fraud, magnetic stripe card. I recall I was in camp during one of the Easter breaks when I started getting messages that what's going on here, that there's a lot of fraud. So somehow the fraudsters had figured out how to compromise magnetic stripe cards. But 2 years before, we had started moving to EMV. Our system was ready, but the market was not ready. So one day, next slide, I think that should be on the next slide. The central bank came up. Next slide, please. Okay, because of, let me just try around up. There's a slide that shows something from the central bank, a letter that says, within 1 month, we must shut down everything magnetic stripe and move to, this one, and move to cheaper pin. 1 month. That 1 month, we lost 30 million customers. What saved us? The product that was to replace that one we were told to shut down was started 2 years earlier. It was there. It didn't pick up. But the moment regulation said shut down, it picked up. That product is what you call Verve today. And Verve has over 60% market share. What am I trying to say to you guys? If you want to do business in Nigeria, there are going to be a lot of things that will disrupt your business. You cannot go with one narrow focus, which is what sometimes you hear in your business schools. You have to have multiple products, because if you don't control that value chain, when the shock comes, the shock can destroy you. And a lot of companies that are not surviving because those shocks do come, but they did not build that resilience into their business model. Next slide. I think I'll round up with this. So in summary, go to the next one. Yeah, this is very important. This is my view of Nigeria. There are rules, but nobody's going to enforce those rules for you. So it's good to play by the rules. Okay? But sometimes you can change the rules of the game. So if the rule says when you play table tennis, the ball must not get to the floor. So it's either you know how to use the bat or you have to know how to move the table. It works. And to me, this is the way I describe doing business in Nigeria. If you go by the traditional ways of doing things, you will miss out, because the people you are dealing with, your competition, are not thinking conventionally. It is not normal to be in a lot of difficulty and they are telling you that your mental health is one of the best in the world. You cannot be having all these experiences and they are telling you that one of the happiest countries in the world. Where did your happiness come from? All these kids we are seeing that's making all of us laugh. The people who are creating them are in abject poverty. How come their poverty did not overtake them, but they're able to make all of us laugh? So the average Nigerian is not your normal kind of person. And in looking at your business model, you have to think about this too. So one of my favorite quotes in IntoSwitch, and my people know this, is when the facts change, I change my mind. What will you do? Because things are always changing. I've had to go to my staff to say, gentlemen and ladies, we are moving to the north. The next day I come and I say, sorry guys, we are going to the south. That's how, MD, are we doing guesswork now? I say, no, the facts have changed. I'm not ashamed to tell you my decision yesterday was a wrong decision. I'd rather tell you I made the wrong decision. Let's move the right direction. And that is the way you should look at your business too. You are complaining. A lady I'm mentoring, she's into fashion, called me a few days ago and she was in tears. I said, what is it? She said, my business is dead. I said, how come? She said, Mitchell, dollar. Then I said, and I'm going to close with this. I said, a few days ago, somebody told me that they went to an exhibition in Germany, pharmaceuticals, and they discovered that there are 3 things that they need in Germany. Moringa and 2 other products. And these things grow in the wild in Nigeria. People are looking for things to import from us. So there's export opportunity in a sector. And you're in a sector where you need dollars. So what stops you from pivoting and adding a part to your business where you can also export easily, get the dollars you need to sustain this other business? That is what I'm doing in InterSwitch. I've gone to Germany to tell my guys in InterSwitch Germany, you cannot be a cost center anymore. Country hard. You have to become a profit center. I've opened an office in the US. I'm trying to convince my board to open one in Canada, in the UK. Everybody go and hustle. This dollar thing is not easy. We have to look for ways to make enough dollars to carry our dollar cost. When you begin to see exchange rate losses of 7 billion, 10 billion, nobody needs to tell you that it's time to begin to think of other things. So the facts will always change when you're in the tropical savannah. I should be ready to change also. Thank you.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Truly an honor and a privilege for me to be here today. And I'd like to first off say a big thank you to Linda and the Doing Business in Nigeria team. Where's Linda? Out at the moment. This is such a great initiative. What do I do with this? Okay. Thank you. And I'm grateful to be here and to be a part of this. Without further ado, bearing in mind that we're working with time, I'll go straight into the presentation. And my mandate is simple: the economic impact of empowering female entrepreneurs. And the big question has been, is it necessary? Is it relevant? Is it the time for it? And the answer is yes. The jury is definitely in, and for very many reasons. Okay. I have an outline, and I'll just run through it very quickly. Thankfully, the gentlemen who went before me, Oludelano of Stanbic and Mr. Mitchell Elegbe, talked to a lot of the numbers, the facts and the figures that I had planned to talk to. So I'm just going to skip over them so I don't bore you and to make the best use of my time as well. Linda is walking back into the room. Ladies and gentlemen, help me celebrate this wonderful lady for this excellent initiative called the Doing Business in Nigeria Conference. I am so amazed by her. She's phenomenal, and I truly, truly, as we say in Warri, prouding on you. Celebrate you big time. Well done. Right. Okay. So I'll just go on very quickly to talk about this sustainability. I'll skip that. I thought it was important to do a helicopter view of global female entrepreneurship before bringing it closer home and then talking to Nigeria. But the key thing or the key point that we must make or that we will take away from here is that it's very important to empower women, particularly female entrepreneurs. It's a prerequisite for inclusive and equitable economic growth because it's been confirmed that women are drivers in every economy. And when you have women who are actively participating in an economy, you see better businesses, you see more resilient structures, you see diversity in the workplace, and of course, better return on investments as well. And so the case for it is already made. Empirical evidence points to that. Increasing women participation means higher productivity. I think I'll just drop those key points first. Greater innovation, and I think the theme of this conference speaks to that as well, innovating for growth. Increased GDP, the numbers are there, and the numbers don't lie. There's more diversity in hiring. I just alluded to that a short while ago. A more inclusive workforce from across board, women-led businesses in most instances recruit all kinds of people, and that diversity that they bring to the workplace is always such a boon. They're also more likely to invest in communities, and what that does is invariably translate to localized economic power, and you're seeing good growth and development on the back of that. So I think that says it all, just the fact that having women and empowering them to deliver more in an economy will do well for the economy of that nation and obviously the citizens. So the global helicopter view, this is what it's like globally, but there is still work to be done. And it's great that we're pushing the STEM agenda. It's great that we're encouraging more women to do business. But what does that really translate to in terms of deliverables, in terms of numbers and figures today? Globally, this is what the numbers say they are. And then if you cascade down to Africa, closer home in our continent, Africa stands as the promised land. What does that mean for Africa? We looked at the global one. Let me just go back there. Okay. 61% of countries do still score below 50% out of 100. In other words, there's still a lot of work to do. Okay. That's global. We come down to Africa, this is what it looks like. But the good news is Africa stands as the promised land of women entrepreneurship. And this is just to say the numbers are there. There's so much that we can do. $150 to $200 billion is estimated to be added to the GDP of countries by the time this potential is fulfilled or these numbers are met. And so Africa is the place to be. There's a whole lot going on that we must take advantage of. And this is just another pictorial view of where we're at. How has Nigeria fared? Not doing badly. In terms of global female entrepreneurship, this is where we are. Nigeria is at 40.7% and at a tie with Zambia, I believe. Okay, Nigeria and Zambia are at the same number. And even though some of these numbers can be queried, but give or take, it just shows how far we have grown. And just fun fact, a few numbers to throw out. Nigeria has, 43% of its population are women or female entrepreneurs. That's 23 million people, also ladies who own businesses or who have started businesses, right? Another fun fact, when you think about what the benefits are that these women bring to Nigeria, and we'll see a lot of them, social indicators, economic indicators that tell us the value that they add. I am reminded about Malala's analogy where she talked about the need to carry women along. And so not just women, but women entrepreneurs, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So she uses the picture of a bird, right? And she says that it's like a bird flying on two wings. If the population of Nigeria is 50% almost female, 49%, men are 51%, that's like half of your population, right? So if you have half of your population not as empowered as they should be, it's like a bird flying on one wing. It can only go so far. It can only soar so high, right? But if the women are empowered, they have the numbers, they're contributing to the economy. Imagine the men and the women all flying together, okay? Does that create a picture in your mind? And for me, it was a very powerful, it resonated with me just thinking about it, and that's why there's a compelling case to empower female entrepreneurs because of what they will do. Okay, so let's just dive down fully to the Nigerian business environment. And Oludelano did a good job talking about the numbers earlier on, so I won't bore you with that anymore. But what all of these slides are simply saying is that the opportunities are enormous. Endless opportunities. There's so much we can do. We have a budget for this year, for instance, just using this as an example, that portrays the vibrant ecosystem in Nigeria. So if you look at this KPMG numbers that they put out for us, you're wondering, the expenditure exceeds the revenue, right? There's a deficit already, just looking at all of this, correct? Where will the funding come from? What will happen? Is it all bad news? Someone's inclination might be to say, I throw my hands up. I don't see how this will work. We're in trouble in Nigeria. But you know, just very much like that Japanese symbol for opportunity. So the Japanese symbol for opportunity is conversely the same one for crisis. So whereas people will see crisis, other people will see opportunities. And I can tell you many stories on the back of COVID where a lot of people were locked down for 3 months and didn't see what could possibly happen in that time. But others, perspective, Michelle spoke about it earlier on, were able to see the opportunities and pivot sometimes their businesses or their offerings and continue to smile literally to the bank all through that period, okay? And so for us in Nigeria, yes, the challenges abound. And for women entrepreneurs, they're there as well. But it's not all bad news, is the point that I want to make. There are challenges. These facts were talked about in the course of the earlier conversation and the panel as well. Access to capital, it remains an issue, and a major one at that. The infrastructural gaps, they're there. No gainsaying that. The market dynamics, we live in a VUCA world. It changes every day. I think someone alluded earlier on to the fact that you go and buy something in the morning and you go back later in the day and the price has changed. I had that happen to me just 2 Fridays ago. I sent someone to go buy a bottle of water, a carton of water. He bought the carton of water at 2005. That was in the morning. This was about 9-ish or 10-ish. And then later on, we ran out. Oh, we'll go buy another one, okay? Because he was at some event that was going on. So I gave him money again. And he comes back, and it is 3,200 the same day. So 2 or 3 hours apart. I said to him, no, you got to be kidding me. It's not true. I almost wanted to get up and follow him and say, take me there. I've got to go and see this for myself. I was that much of a shock. But that's what happens. Very volatile economy, the market dynamics, up today, down tomorrow, sideways the next, but it's a very real thing. And then the gender disparities, they still persist. No two ways about that, okay? So why should it matter? Why are we still talking about empowering female entrepreneurs? We've made the case for it, but we'll just go in a bit deeper. Economic benefits. We talked about the GDP and how all of that is almost quadrupled when you have empowered women who are driving businesses, job creation. And I'm going to shake a bit of a table here and just talk about my position. On Linda's behalf, I'll say it's my view, okay? So it's not doing business in Nigeria's view. And so please don't hold Linda, blame me for this one. And I'm going to talk about, and this is my view about this wonderful project that has come outstream recently. $19 billion expended, great project. I'm super proud of the people behind it. Wow, that's what good the project will do, okay? But guess what? It costs $19 billion to do that, right? At maximum capacity, and this is me, again, like I said, my views, I'm ready to bear the if any, fallout from this conversation. But at full capacity, I assume that probably 5,000 people at most will be employed by that organization. Full capacity at most. I'd like to say the gentleman who is government is not in the room, because I was going to say to him, and maybe they should look at this, but if $1 billion was taken and it was spread across 5,000 women, right? The incremental value, the economic benefits will far outweigh what we'll probably get in a couple of years. Is anyone thinking like me? Is anyone thinking like me, or you don't agree? I know there's the food chain. I know there are things that will come down all that way. But honestly, because women are known to not only create jobs, but carry other people along. Women have this sisterhood and are big about sending the elevator back down. Women are big, and as entrepreneurs, at ensuring that the benefits from their businesses cascade down to the communities that they're in. In fact, there was a study that said most women, female entrepreneurs in Africa, are quick to do all of this or start up a business because they need the extra income to send their children to school, and because they want to have an education for their children or better quality of life for their family. And so they will do this. Iya Modinot, she's frying akara in the morning. Later in the afternoon, she's doing something else. By the evening, she's selling recharge cards. They're doing different things at different times because they have these dreams. And that's why it's important for us to appreciate what empowering female entrepreneurs in Africa and in Nigeria in particular will do for us. They create jobs. There's social economic benefits as well. The economic ripples I just talked about. Female entrepreneurs, more and more, we're seeing some of them doing great jobs and inspiring our younger women to say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it as well. They're adding value, I can do that as well. Part of the benefits of empowering women, okay? Are there barriers and solutions? Is it all easy peasy, honky-dory? I wake up tomorrow and say I want to become a female entrepreneur, and that's it. I go and I make millions of bucks. It doesn't work that way. There are barriers and solutions, but like the women that we are, typically we break through and ensure that we get the results that we're looking for. I won't dwell too much on this, but this is just about the need for education, because that's part of the barriers that have been identified as slowing women entrepreneurs down. Iya Modinot, that I referred to earlier on, for instance, is probably selling akara in, down the road in Adiola or Deco. And she's selling akara, and she's wrapping it up in newspaper, just newspapers, right? And handing it out. But you and I agree that those akara, now that one they sweet pass. Those ones they wrap in akara in newspapers, right? But guess what education will do for her? I live in Abuja, and there's a new gig that's started recently where two young ladies, gone ahead, schooled abroad, have come back and have now started the akara place. This akara place, the akara is banging. They do akara boga, they do fried yam, they put it all, and they package it nicely. The bags, the containers, it's got the akara place written on it. And if anybody knows them, please tell them to send some my way for this free advert and give it them today, right? And then they do it, and then they package it. So Iya Modinot will do it and sell it at that spot for 200, 400 naira. But guess what akara place does it for? I think it's anything between 7,000 to 9,000 the last time I checked. And we are buying. The place is full. You don't eat akara just in the morning or in the afternoon. Even at night, people are at the akara place. They're chopping it very well. And these ladies are literally smiling to the bank. That's the difference education can make. So in empowering female entrepreneurs as well, it's important to give them that benefit. We want Iya Modina to be the next akara place. A few things that we've alluded to already, I'll just jump to them, but what are the solutions? We've talked about the impacts, so what are the solutions? Yes, the challenges are there, but will we let that slow us down? The answer is no. We're going to either go around it, jump over it, or like in that earlier picture, go right through the wall if there's a need to. But the solutions that would help in empowering more and more women to take their place and add value to our economy as entrepreneurs include this, okay? We're talking about tailored financial products. Olu earlier on talked about it and how women, how they're concerned about women and are developing products. There are many banks that do that as well and other financial institutions that are rolling that out, and that's commendable. And would like to ask that they do more. But much more than just rolling out the product that's tailored to women, the terms and the conditions have to be far better. They have to be more easier to access, and they have to be, in a nutshell, cheaper, okay? The rates have to be far lower if we want to do that, but that will be one way. Another way will be to nurture talent. You see that smart young woman who you know can do it, has got the drive has got the intellect or the competence to do something really great and add value in any sector of the economy, there's an onus on all of us, female entrepreneurs, and the he for she's who support the women in their lives to ensure that we encourage them to bring their best self forward, to be able to rise to the task and, just help them to become the best version of themselves. Provide that enabling, inclusive ecosystem. Policy reforms were talked about earlier on, so I won't dwell too much on that, but that's critical as well. So we want to see more women at the table. To Malala's analogy, we want to see this big bird called Nigeria flying and soaring on eagle wings, but that will only happen if both the men and the women are doing it together, and only when the women get the support that they need, because they're light years behind the men, and that's not debatable, okay? A few women have done it, and this is just a salute to the women. I was looking for Linda's picture to put up there and didn't find one quickly, but honestly, saluting Linda for the good work she's doing. Just to wrap up is to talk about collaboration and partnerships. Very important. It's not just you can't do it all on your own, and you make a very small package when you do anyway. So it's very important to find the right partners, to work with them, and to be able to move your business forward. And so in wrapping up, just the things that are key that we need to look at in terms of empowering female entrepreneurs, yeah? Policy support, it goes without saying. Access to market, it remains a key issue that can help us make that quantum leap and see female entrepreneurs giving a whole lot more to our economy, okay? Corporate initiatives, very important as well, and there'll be benefits in that area. Investment in women-led ventures, that's all that we're talking about. But look at what the numbers say, okay? The volume in female-founded startups, and you can see how the number continues to grow. So this is a call to venture capital and angel investors in the room to say, you know what, you can do a whole lot because you are driving the economy essentially, and not just female entrepreneurs, because there's a whole lot that we can get out of that. Measuring impact, revenue growth, we've talked about that. I think my time is up, so I'm just running through very quickly. Social indicators, these are the benefits that are bound to be ours when we do go down that route and encourage the women. And this is my call to action. A friend of mine, Oracle, gave me this. They call it the CIA strategy. And it's a call to action to essentially say, let's collaborate. And hence that picture earlier on. I'm not a rabid feminist in the sense that we're saying, oh, it has to be about women and women alone. We need the men, we need each other. So that collaboration is key. Let's join forces, let's share knowledge, let's create the circles of support. Let's invest in ourselves, in others, in critical areas of the economy. Infrastructure is very key. We've talked about that. And then let's advocate as well. So in terms of policy making, like we discussed earlier, let's begin to have the conversations. Let's demand accountability and probity from our elected officers. Let's come up with policies. Let's become thought leaders in areas that will benefit either our sector or other women. Very important to do that. And just to say that, yes, that we can, because we have a responsibility to the generations that will come to bequeath, if you like, a better world to them, a better economy, a better nation. And if the economy isn't doing as well as it should do, because the female entrepreneurs have not stepped up to the plate, then we won't be giving that legacy behind that we hope to do. And on that note, I'll just like to say a big thank you. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you again, Linda, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rutus, for the introductions. Good morning, everyone. I think I would like to set the tone for the panel discussion. And I think a good place to start would be where Mitchell had started in his keynote presentation, talking about the Doing Business report and the ranking. So the Doing Business report, until it was discontinued, I think about 3 years ago, due to some irregularities with data, of course, for some countries, and I'm happy to report that Nigeria, of course, was not one of those countries that was indicted. So in the Doing Business report for 2020, Nigeria was ranked 131 out of 190 economies. Essentially, this was largely due to
targeted interventions by the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, which was set up at the time to, amongst other things, improve Nigeria's international sort of like standing in that space. And then so through their collaborative efforts with ministries, departments, and agencies, also with subnational governments, also with the judiciary and the legislature, quite a number of reforms were done. So for the first time, Nigeria witnessed a focused intervention on ease of doing business. You recall that we're coming out of a recession at the time. It was very critical that that area was able to support businesses. And of course, even in this time, I'm happy to see that on the government side, there's alignment. Firstly, with the retention of the PEBEC as a council focusing on ease of doing business, as well as also the appointment of the Special Advisor on Policy and Coordination. And we know the experience with businesses in relation to policy flip-flops and lack of signages, even around same government institutions within same ministries. We found how sometimes, there's no synergy. And so even looking at the budget, looking like a budget that is supposed to be driven by private sector participation, it is critical that doing business in Nigeria, there should be focused interventions on ease of doing business. Then also the SME conversation. Again, this was spoken, I think the first keynotes we had, there was talk around the SMEs, and we all know how they are the engine of every economy. They drive economies. They're the largest employers of labor. We've seen that they take up to about 80% in terms of labor. We also know their contributions to GDP, and we also know in terms of what they do in terms of businesses. They occupy about over 90% of businesses in Nigeria. So again, focus intention to ensure that SMEs, and I think Ruti spoke about one of the biggest issues, being access to finance. And it's also, just this morning I was having a conversation with an SME when she talked about the fact that she had left the bank. She had worked with one of the top tier banks for about 10 years to set up her business, and how she has grown over the years. This was an impromptu conversation, but again, it led essentially to the access to finance. And I'm, of course, very happy to hear what the first keynote speaker spoke around women and access to finance. But then, of course, in recent times, I've come to understand that it's not only just about the availability of the finance, but into what is driving their own ability to actually access it. So interventions around ensuring that those women that you're focused on are able to even understand the process, are able to access the process in terms of transparency as well. And then, and different interventions around that. So I will now go on to take the questions for the panelists, and I will be starting with you, Chidi. So looking at foreign investors in terms of opportunities in Nigeria, what do you believe are the key opportunities for foreign investors looking to do business in Nigeria, and what are some of the key considerations for investors, particularly in the economic climate?
So this question is always asked all the time in terms of what are the key things that the foreign investors should look at. I think I did love Michelle's presentation because it probably did all the justice that I needed to speak on. And I think I'm going to borrow something from his presentation, which was perspective, right? So, and I think it is the perspective that you use to look at Nigeria is how you're actually going to approach it. I'm just going to share some facts. And so I was in India a month ago. This time around, I've been to India a lot of times, but this time around I went to India with a different view on how to support Indian investment back into Nigeria. And I met with a family who was looking to come into the country, and there was something that struck me. And and the family, well, they mentioned something about Nigeria, that everybody sees challenges, right? But all they had been waiting for was just a perfect business environment. That when they see Nigeria, they see huge opportunities because it reminds them of the journey of India. And a lot of the growth that's happened in India actually followed similar paths. And so he mentioned one thing, and I flagged to him, maybe I brought the challenges to him. I said, but you don't see a challenge with FX. And it just boils down to exactly what Michelle said. He said, no. And I said, why? He says, he's looked at the African horizon. He said, there's no country, on the continent that you have employment, right? Cheap employment, right? So we have the population, the average age is hovering between 16 to 19, which means he can have cheap employment for the next 2 decades. And what that does is that if he looks at the demand across just the West African corridor, if the infrastructures and policies were right, Nigeria could be an industrial hub for the rest of Africa. What that means is that FX becomes a non-issue, because once you're able to create an industry that supports your neighbors, then it's a non-issue, because definitely you generate as much FX as you require. I think one of the other things I always tell people is also to understand the market. Nigeria has always benefited from the fact that people believe this is what doing business in Nigeria is, without actually understanding what the challenges are. So investors come with what analysts tell them, large population, growth in GDP at some point, and a lot of different factors that actually seem like business. You should put in $1 and then you should get out $2 in return. But understanding the terrain of the market also helps you to navigate the challenges. So if you're an investor coming here, so you know that definitely infrastructure might be a challenge, right? So understanding how to navigate that would also help you prepare for the challenges that you're going to face. And I think it's one of the things that we do advise investors that to try to navigate that. Now, that doesn't mean that the challenges are not there, right? But it's also good for investors to always look at the horizon and say, what is it that I can do to mitigate these challenges, before trying to invest? And we also look and say we also have to encourage what we call the inward investing. I think one of the challenges that Nigeria has had is we do talk about foreign investors all the time. But the reality is that when you look at certain factors within we need to start to encourage inward investing, because the inward investing is a lot more patient. Patient capital is what the country requires. And this is also what we advise foreign investors as well, that capital has to be patient. If you're looking for returns that are actually going to be delivered in less than 5 years, which is what most of the investors look at, it's going to be challenging, because every single 5 years you face a kind of economic challenge.
Thank you very much, Judy. If I had to summarize what you've said, I would say that know your market. It's very important that they understand their market, and so in understanding the market, you know how to navigate through it. Even while you spoke, you also identified in terms of the challenges when you talked around infrastructure, and I'm sure when we hear from John, he will probably talk a little more about what government is doing about some of those challenges that you've highlighted in your statements just now. So going online to throw the same question to Yemi, who is online. I hope you can hear us. So could you share with us in terms of the same question, what do you think in terms of the key opportunities for foreign investors in Nigeria, and what do you think are the key considerations that they should be having in mind while considering investing in Nigeria? Sorry, if you can hear us, are you muted? So in terms of sound, I don't know if technical can do something about this. So maybe we will look into that. We'll have the technical team look into that for us, Yemi, and we'll come back to you as soon as that is rectified. So I will instead, then let's hear from you, John. So what sectors of the economy do you see as having the most potential for growth and investment in the near future, so that we can have, so sharing some intel with us as per government, so we're here for it, as they would like to say, as common parlance, we're here for it. So give us some intel. What are we supposed to be expecting? What do you think are the sectors of the economy that we should be looking at in terms of most potential for growth? John.
Hello. Thank you for that. I think I'll start with, thank you everyone, by the way. And thanks to the organizers for the opportunity to participate in this conversation, which I think is very important given the huge challenges that we're facing as a country and the need to have this sort of discourse as we collectively find a way to overcome all the barriers and create a prosperous Nigeria for all. Government cannot do it alone. Government would have to participate, would have to collaborate with private sector, with every one of us, in order to achieve the objectives that we are sharing. Now, on that question, I think a lot of it, and thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for the presentation, because I think that presentation very nicely set the stage for the conversation that we're having. Quite frankly, I think a lot of the things we're going to be discussing has already been highlighted in that presentation. And going to that, I would say a lot of the things, the challenges that we face as a country, and not to be trite, also represents opportunities as well. Because a lot of value is created when you're able to solve problems for people. And the same thing holds for a country as well. We know what the usual suspects are. Energy, lack of adequate energy, food security, infrastructure, which is quite huge. I believe there's an estimate by the AFDB that we will need about $100 billion over the next 10 years to be able to just erase the infrastructure deficits that we have as a country. So, but on the other side, we have quite favorable demographics, quite favorable characteristics that I would say that in itself presents huge opportunities for investors, out of which the government is using those same areas let me frame government's response in a thematic fashion, in looking at those areas as themes that should drive intervention in the economy. So, for example, food. We have huge needs to feed our population, which is estimated to be about 400 million in 10 years or so. And with such a huge population, the food requirement goes beyond just agriculture and goes into food systems. In looking at it from a comprehensive standpoint and the ecosystem that goes beyond agriculture to agribusiness, to infrastructure, to manufacturing, and all other adjacent businesses that requires you to have a very functional food system. And that is an area that the government is quite focused on. And there are a number of specific initiatives that have been on the course to try to drive transformation in that space. One particular initiative is the Special Agriculture Processing Zones, which is an initiative, an integrated agriculture initiative that attempts to resolve the significant barriers in our agribusiness, which is the high levels of post-harvest losses that we experience, on which some estimates put it as high as 60%. So if you're thinking about it from a farmer's standpoint, if I'm going to lose 60% of every crop that I plant and it doesn't leave the farm gate, then what is the motivation to plan? What is the motivation to make investments towards enhancing my capacity? So the way the Special Agriculture Processing Zone is set up is that it provides access to market, access to inputs, access to technology, to farmers.
Sound check.
One, with that visibility that they can sell their crop, they will be able to plan better. With access to improved inputs,
I heard myself echo.
Seedlings, they're able to increase the yield on their produce. And
it's echoing.
One aspect of it is also creating a processing as well, so that we don't end up being just making raw materials and having to import processed goods at a higher cost. By having a processing zone attached to the agricultural part of the farming part of agriculture, you not only provide access to the farmers, but you also increase our capacity to share in the global value distribution by being able to value add on our products. So agriculture remains a key intervention point. And the other areas that I'll very quickly add is infrastructure. Recently, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came out with the Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund, which is supposed to resolve, is designed to resolve a number of the major infrastructure issues that we have. And infrastructure is very key. And I'll use example of what we've experienced in technology. You see, government cannot determine who the next interswitch is going to be, or flood or wave or whoever. But what government can do is to provide incentives or help in laying out the fiber optics, in making sure that the backbone infrastructure does exist, especially such infrastructure like fiber optics or railways, or that are often in the purview of the public sector. Because when you provide that sort of foundational infrastructure, it provides the platform for businesses to innovate. When you have more internet penetration, we have more access to the internet, then that's what enables a Flutter Wave or a InnoSwitch or Andela, all these other businesses that we've seen come up over the last 10 years to innovate and build businesses. So while we cannot point where innovation is going to go, what government can do is provide a platform to allow that to happen.
Thank you very much, John. Very good point around agriculture, because it continues to be very relevant, whether in terms of food to the population, but even also in terms of export, for us to be able to get that revenue. And then, of course, in relation to the Infrastructure Development Fund, again, very good development. And I guess we'll be looking forward to, in terms of the, actualizing that infrastructure for businesses.
I can't hear her very well.
Was already highlighted earlier around being a challenge that businesses are constantly facing. So same question to you, Mitchell. I don't know if you have anything to add in relation to sectors in the economy that you think that are witnessing in terms of what investors should be looking at in terms of economy-wise, in addition to agriculture and what he has spoken about in relation to infrastructure.
Naturally, I would like to say, when I look at technology, I'm an engineer by training, I understand that sector very well. So naturally, I would say anything to do with technology is something to look at, largely because of its ability to scale, and also because I believe that the impact that technology can bring to bear on the country, if it is properly deployed, is something that we cannot underestimate. But having said that, I will personally, if I was to make an investment in Nigeria today, I will focus on the areas I call the fundamentals of living. If you go by some of the arguments I made earlier, that we have a very large population, lots of needs, but people are not quite rich. I'll be looking at anything from a position of affordability. So first, I want to impact on lives. So I'll be interested in agriculture, as we said already. I'll be interested in affordable housing. The quality of life of people must improve. I'll be interested in how private sector and government can collaborate in the area of infrastructure. So I believe there's a lot the private sector can do in the area of roads, transportation, and so on and so forth. I'm interested in healthcare, okay, more from a well-being point of view than just producing drugs. In other words, I would like to encourage people to take their health, to move more to preventive than curative, okay? And any investment that can drive these sectors are things I'll be interested in.
The panelists have talked extensively about the potential in Nigeria in terms of the economy, how there are opportunities for doing business. They've also highlighted in terms of some of the issues and challenges that are also in that space. And of course, we have government here who has also shared with us some of the interventions that we should look forward to. One thing that is also very clear, one thing that has stayed with me particularly is looking for local solutions for our issues. And I think in doing that, I think it's very important that government has more engagement with private sector, because it's important that these solutions are co-created. Even as government is doing all of those initiatives, it's very important that government also keeps an ear on realities and the conversations around what is essentially happening and what are the solutions that private sector is even building into that process. So co-creating those solutions possibly would have a far-reaching effect in terms of how those businesses are able to operate and how government is also solving for those problems. So on that note, this marks the end of this particular panel session. I thank the panelists most sincerely for their contributions, which I believe that has been enlightening and insightful for the people in the room. And yes, thank you, and a happy good morning.
And the third part of it, if you know, most businesses in Nigeria have to do with issues around collateral, how do you secure your loans. So the third part of our mandate is also provide partial credit guarantees to financial institutions so that they are incentivized to be able to lend to micro, small, and medium enterprises. In that area, we have a subsidiary called Impact Credit Guarantee that has done over 300 billion in the last 3 years in terms of providing credit guarantees to financial institutions to be able to lend to them. So these are all the things we are doing in different segments of our mandate, and I will take on that to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That's quite impressive, and we'll come back to that and ask a bit more questions. So over to you, Jane. We're talking about businesses now. We're talking about small and medium businesses, but we're also talking about the bigger businesses. And every small business, every small or medium business wants to grow into that big business. And what we find is one of the things that will make it easy to pivot from the small and medium business into the big business is technology. You want to grow, you must be looking towards being a tech-enabled business in some aspect or the other, whether it's your supply chain or your customer service, whatever it is, but you must be looking to incorporate technology to, improve your efficiency and also help you scale up. Now, with the work you do at, is it NIGComSat? NIGComSat, thank you. I've been battling with that word, that acronym in my head. Okay, so with NIGComSat, what you find is with the GSM technology, with the mobile telephony, we really leapfrogged in this part of the world, in Africa. And that was a good thing because we didn't have to go through a long transition process. It came and it drastically changed things. It changed the business landscape and all of that. One of my favorite images in my head is, I remember one picture that I saw somewhere of, there was a young girl who was carrying firewood from one of the villages, and she was on her mobile phone to show you, how much it has spread. But in spite of that, in spite of all the achievements, there are still places that connectivity is still a pipe dream for them. Now, what is NIGECOMSAT doing to bridge that digital divide in those places that cannot be accessed or are yet to access that digital technology? What is NIGECOMSAT doing in that area?
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear? Okay, great. So let me frame your question, because I would like to answer it by framing it. I think it was Binta that said that entrepreneurs face 4 critical access problems: access to funding, access to infrastructure, access to knowledge or talent, then I can't remember the 4th one. So a good way is to go to access to infrastructure. That's where NIGECOMSAT sits. So we are an infrastructure provider. Of course, you have logistics, you have power. We are focused on communication, and we do communication via satellite. So in very simple terms, we enable people communicate, and we do that via satellite. So talking about how do we bridge that gap, it might be good to go back to the mandate. That's how you know you work for the government, once you say the mandate. So definitely, what have we been asked or tasked to do? And it's simple things. Because my agency sits under the Federal Ministry of Communication, Information, and Digital Economy. One of the things we really want to achieve in a country like Nigeria, even though it's big, we've seen the disruption brought by the telcos with the mobile communication, but the penetration is still 50%. So for a population of about 200 million, slightly about half. So our goal, ambitious goal, is to make sure we drive that penetration to about 70% by 2025. We're not doing it alone, because NIGECOMSAT does satellite. We also have Galaxy, another agency that does fiber. We want the coverage. We want to move the coverage today from where it sits to about 80% by 2027. We want underserved, and I say this because I think that really narrows it down to where our focus is. The underserved areas are still unpenetrated, and we want to change that. Very ambitious. We want to make sure by 2027 it moves from about 61% to 20%. But the trick for us is that private sector, no bias, is driven by commercial gains. I've been in the private sector. I was there for over 20 years. You cannot tell a terrestrial operator like MTN or Airtel to go and put their mast or base station in a village with 40 people. It doesn't make any business sense. It's agencies that, like us, that are tasked with bridging that digital divide. We go there and make sure that we provide that coverage. And a good example of what we do, to put it back on an example, is the Project 774. Who has heard of Project 774? No one. That's not good. Okay, so Project 774 was launched in February this year by the ministry, and the goal is to provide connectivity in the 774 local governments in Nigeria. There's 774 of them. That's our goal. And as I speak today, we've done about 5 states. We've gone to Imo State. We've gone to Kogi State. You guys should be on Twitter, because we are trying our best to communicate this. We've done Zamfara State. My team is currently in Sokoto State. So we're doing it not alone. So we're using satellite. We're also using fiber. That's Galaxy backbone. So these are some of the things we do. Those are the ways we are trying to bridge that divide and solve that problem of connectivity.
Thank you, Jane. Just curious, though, when you say you've been to a number of states, to put it in context for us, how many local governments are in those states? That way we can compare with the 774 targets.
That's how you know she has caught me. So the phase 1, because it's massive, this is a massive country. So the pilot, which is what we are doing, because we started in February, is to go to 5 local governments each in each of those states. That's what we are doing. So each of those states I mentioned, we've gone to 5. Phase 2, we're expanding. It's a 3-year project.
Thank you, Jane. Patrick, I will be back. I'm coming to you. But before we go on, Chantel, whilst we're on the subject of ambitious goals, metering, of course, with the new NEC rules, with the Band A issues and all of that, everybody's interested in what is going on in the power sector. And currently, you have a metering gap of about 8 million customers, according to NERC, right? Mind you, I said customers, not consumers, not users of electricity. Customers, so registered customers with the discos. You have about 8 million customers, that's the gap. And NERC wants to close that in 3 to 5 years. With the way the exchange rate is, in fact, I don't know whether it's rising or dropping or it's just playing all sorts of games these days. I can imagine that is a huge ambition for meter providers. And we know the myriad challenges that come with these things. I remember when the MAP thing came up, the meter asset providers, and these people had invested a lot of money bringing in meters. The meters got to the port, and then customs decides to hike the tariff. Of course, they had not factored that into the economics. So we're in trouble. And that's one of the many issues that we have in terms of, somebody talked about policy and regulatory cohesion. You formulate a policy to promote something good in a particular sector. Another sector sees it as an opportunity to increase their revenue, forgetting that it is at cross purposes with what the other sector is trying to achieve. But anyway, let's come back now to Mojek Group, which I know is one of the foremost meter providers in Nigeria. How are you going to cope with these changes? How are you going to help Nigeria meet that target? What will you do to maintain, or what are you doing to maintain your leadership position in the industry in spite of all these challenges?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, this doesn't sound like an exciting audience. Good afternoon, everyone. I thought we just came back from a multi-day holiday. I would have thought we would have been more spirited. And usually women are more spirited. Thank you very much to Linda and to the organizers. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I always love sitting with women, particularly young African women, because I believe we are the future. And I just thought before I answer your question about power, the lady who spoke before our panel, I don't even think we've begun to, we're the tip of the iceberg at the moment. Africa is the future. We're in Nigeria, but I want you to think Africa, all right? Africa is not just the future, actually, it's now, all right? People talk about America. That's a gone economy. Europe, gone. Today, the world is talking about China, and we're talking about India. Those were the markets that everybody thought were emerging markets. If you guys remember, like 10, 20, 30 years ago, that was where all of the world's poverty was situated. And now they're the world's biggest economy. So imagine the story that will be told in the next 20 years. Well, in the next 10, 20 years, right, as NIGECOMSAT and companies like ours and others begin to invest in infrastructure and begin to actually utilize this potential that we've been talking about, the potential that Africa has laid dormant for years, right? But more importantly, I'm very excited about the role that women will play in telling that story, in changing that trajectory, right, of the African story. So back to what we've done, as Mojek. We came into the market, or let me say specifically me, I inherited the company. I came into the market just at the cusp of privatization. And at the cusp of privatization, so when you talk about the numbers, as moderator, when we talk about 8 million metering gap, Nigeria had a much bigger metering gap at the time. So at the time of privatization, right, there were 4 out of 5 Nigerians did not have electricity meters. So that means 80% of the market didn't have meters. So how do we collect, or better still, with all the monies that I invested in generation and the billions and billions of dollars, everything from the gas supplier to the GenCo to transmission to distribution, everything is collected at the point of that meter, right? So we saw, as a company, an immediate gap. And I think this probably just speaks to, because I see that we're talking about opportunities and things like that. it speaks to understanding how to look at a market. So I don't go, or we don't go as a company into any market without first of all saying, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? What is the size of that market or the size of that problem that we, would also like to solve? So meaning if we were trying to solve something in tourism, or better still like we're doing in power. So Mojek is known for meters, but we're not just a metering company, right? Today when you're talking about electricity tariff and the high hikes in tariff, right? We actually have a fundamental energy poverty problem. We have an energy security problem as a country also. That, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly for the women in the room, is an opportunity for you to say, you know what, how do I begin to play in helping to solve that problem? Because the money we're looking for is in the problem that we're solving, right? And so for us as a company, as I said, 4 out of 5 Nigerians didn't have electricity meters. So that means around the north, south, east, and west of Nigeria, there were just no meters. And today, let's say 10 years down the line, right, I think we have metered as a total, as a sector, 5 million customers, of which Mojek has done at least 60% of that volume today, right, with, again, local equipment and local, of course, employment, right? So by the grace of God, we are the largest, manufacturer of smart meters, bar none, in not just West Africa, but, in sub-Saharan Africa, right? But that came from us saying, let us solve the Nigerian problem. Let us first of all look at addressing the Nigerian problem. And from addressing the Nigerian problem, we are now going into East Africa, other parts of West Africa, and of course Central Africa. But as you mentioned, how do we close that 8 million metering gap, or the additional? So actually the real figure, right, it's really about 5-6 million. We're making provision for the fact that, as you know, there are new entrants into the market, right, new real estate development, and then there's also replacement of legacy meters, right? So when we now bundle all of that together, what we really need to do is, what that also does is, that's going to create opportunities for investment as well as opportunities for job creation, right? So if I could quickly break that down for you all real quick. The metering ecosystem of the power sector is actually a value chain. So you can come in either at the point of manufacturing, which for us as a company, right, we have various subsidiaries within that value chain. So you can manufacture the meters. You can be the company that goes as a distributor, for example. Today with the Electricity Act, states and things have been opened up. So now states can now also generate their power. Anytime anything is being generated, whether it's oil, water, power, any infrastructure, you're going to need what? A meter to calibrate what has been, of course, generated and consumed, and then, of course, pay for it. So it's not just, so metering is not just for electricity, right? It's also water and a bunch of other things. But I think for me, the real subject here is that as a sector and as a market, and I just really want to just put this in terms of feminine power, right? 10 years down the line, not only are we the largest manufacturer, on the continent, but year on year, we literally have led the market. And I think you mentioned, market leadership. But that is also because we look at the market very strategically. So we're constantly thinking about innovative ways. So we're not thinking about how, does the customer come to us. We actually have something called a mobile map, which means we go and storm areas. I mean, there are places where people have not seen a meter. So across the country, whether it's Jos, I mean, literally we're in all the utilities in Nigeria today. And as you know, many of the utilities, of course, and we, of course, lead many of those markets in those utilities, and they cross over 2 or 3, 4 states, right? But for us to close the gap, I know I'm gonna hand the mic over right quick. To close the gap, what we simply need, honestly, is just funding, right? For us to be able to get the funding. And I can safely say that there's a new presidential metering initiative, right, alongside, a multiplicity of other things that are going to go on for us to be able to close it. So we're raising the funds as a government, all right? We're raising the money, and we should be able to close it out in the next 2-3 years, right? But I want us as Nigerians to know that The only reason why we don't have power today as a country is because for some reason people tend to think that, electricity is free. It is extremely expensive to generate and extremely expensive to transmit. And up until recent development, you could not store electricity, right? So the development of batteries and containerized solutions enables us to be able to store it. So as it's generated, it needs to be transmitted, distributed, and consumed and billed immediately. Otherwise, again, this is what then leads to the losses that we all talk about, etc., right? But as I said before, today we are now able to store that. I could talk forever about dimensioning, the opportunities in the power sector, and I really would love to talk some more about it with what's happened, with the.
We will come back to you, Chantel. Definitely, you'll have the opportunity to talk a bit more about that. Okay, so coming to you, Patrick. Dale Carnegie, you've been in existence for over a century, and I'm sure you have seen all sorts as an organization, working in different countries, over 85 countries, right? Working in different countries and, offering services, training and all that to businesses. So what I'd like to know is what are some of the unique cultural and business challenges that you find that companies often face, especially with the Nigerian story, with the peculiarity of Nigeria? What has been your experience in that regard?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry, I lost my voice. I hope you can hear me. Okay, thank you. I see you done your homework on us. You're very correct. Dale Carnegie has been around for 115 years. We're in Nigeria. This is our 11th year. Many people in the room may not have heard about us because we work more with the bigger firms. But at the same time, what affects the bigger firms affects small businesses as well. Talking about Nigeria, a good way I will put it is there's this psychologist, Hofstede, categorized countries, cultures in 6 different dimensions. But I will speak about culture in terms of the uniqueness of Nigeria. Nigeria is not alone. In that category, Nigeria is, India is there, China is there. And what makes these cultures unique, and we need to listen to understand the implication for business. There's something in psychology we call the power distance between the leaders and the rest of us. In Nigeria and these other countries, it's as wide as West is from the East. What that means is that the rest of society would tend to defer to the leader. And the danger is, it's not all bad, but the danger in that is that if anything is going wrong, nobody might tell the leader. And that explains to a large extent why we may be where we are. And it starts right from home, where the kids at home can't even, I don't want to use the word challenge, but they can't speak up and tell their parents certain things because they know the dad in the house may not want to hear it. One of the ways I have done that in my home, for example, is to tell my children, please be free to speak your mind, but do that respectfully. I'm still your dad. The whole idea is that in a place like Nigeria, that's the sort of culture we have. That distance is there. The other culture speaks to some of the things I've heard today. The society is masculine, built for the men, whether we like it or not. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's what we inherited, and that's what we are trying to change because we're seeing the negative part of it at home, in society, in the workplace. The other dimension also, that's the masculinity of society. But the implication for business is this. When you have a situation where we operate the kind of culture we have in Nigeria, innovation won't thrive here. You know why? Innovation will thrive in an atmosphere where we level the playing field in the office, where everyone is able to speak up. You have an idea, you speak your mind, because there's trust that nobody will persecute me or penalize me for saying my mind. When people are shut down, then they start speaking. we may not understand how much of money we're losing because of this one cultural attribute. But let me tell us what happened. I was a little kid, maybe about 14 years, if I remember, in 1986. For a period of years, NASA had worked so assiduously to take a shuttle into space, the Challenger. And for the first time in the history of NASA, they had two civilians on board, a school teacher. I can't remember the profession of the second civilian. It lasted only 72 seconds that they blasted that the Challenger shuttle into space, and it broke and it scattered. What happened here? In the end, I will tell us what happened. I won't bore us with the details in terms of the engineering stuff that went wrong, but in summary, if you see how NASA is set up, it's a command and change system like a military setup. So where you had a situation where there are some younger engineers on the team realized something was at fault, something was not quite right with that expedition, they couldn't speak up because they knew the leaders wouldn't listen. They had their reservation as also not only about the craft itself. They also had reservation about the time of the year, the weather that expedition was going to happen. But nobody listened, and they didn't push it further. 76 seconds, and that was the end. America lost $3 billion. I repeat, $3 billion, 11 lives, and a whole nation was put to shame because they had leaders who didn't create a kind of culture that will allow people to speak up. Now, we may not be working in organizations where our lives are endangered, maybe like the aircraft, aviation industry, or nuclear power plants. But there was also, not too long ago in Asia, because our culture is kind of similar in terms of power distance, where the chief pilot was absolutely taking the wrong course. But the co-pilot couldn't directly tell him he was doing something wrong. In Asia, their culture is, I don't want to use the word worse, but they are overly even more respectful than we are. So they wouldn't be able to say to their leader, "You're wrong." So instead of saying to the chief pilot, "You were doing the wrong thing," you know what he said? He said, "I think the weather has been very kind to us." He was trying to give him what in psychology we call hinting. He was trying to hint. And of course, they ended up crashing that aircraft. Hundreds of lives were lost. Again, that's aviation. That can happen. But back in the normal, everyday office, that can only tell how much money we are losing as corporations, as a nation, because we haven't allowed a kind of culture that is flattened, that allows everyone in the room to speak up. Someone said here, sorry, Binta, I don't speak Yoruba. What's that Yoruba term you use for speak up? Sorosoke, thank you. We need to have a culture where leaders are comfortable enough to let everyone in the room to speak up. It may not be the most comfortable thing to do, but it's going to be the most productive thing we will ever do to the Nigerian culture when we allow everybody to speak. Like you said, we have been in different cultures around the globe. I've seen it all, and I can tell you the amount of unproductivity that happens simply because of this one cultural trait. Yeah. If only we can put it in Naira terms, I'm sure we will not waste any time to begin to change things. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. Pardon me. Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for sharing that, our dear esteemed judges. So I thank you for the opportunity for standing in front of you and being able to share our journey, and our story of what we're trying to bring into the world. There's a famous African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. The togetherness there speaks about community, And we're solving a problem that is at the third level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We skip the first two levels. The problem is this. Communities are like the cornerstone of the society, right? We find education through communities, we grow through them, we find our sense of belonging through them. But community leaders or the community market in general has been one of the most underserved markets everywhere, especially on the continent. Now, the challenge is this. Community leaders currently have been left to grapple with tools and platforms that were not designed to handle their communities effectively. So they have things like content management solutions, things like the LinkedIns, the Instagrams. These are tools that were designed to help you manage content, but people have started to use it as community solutions. You have things like communication management solutions, like the Telegrams and the WhatsApps and the Slacks. These are tools that were used to manage communication among teams, but now you have a community as big as St. Agnes Church with 10,000 members trying to manage themselves on Telegram. It becomes a big mess. And the problem is this, or the studies have shown that fragmentation of member attention is fast becoming the leading cause of community failure globally. The formula is this: fragmented tools, and by fragmented tools, what I mean is, if I use myself as an example today, I heard about the DNBC conference, and I had to go to a couple of places just to fully understand what DNBC was about. I went to the website to find out about stuff. I went to for community, I went to Twitter. For updates, I went to Instagram. And then I had to chat with my friend on WhatsApp. And I almost forgot about the event until I saw it on her WhatsApp status again. And that's what I call fragmentation of member attention. It leads to siloed data, low impact, and low engagement in communities. And ultimately, this leads to failing communities. 9 out of 10 individuals in this room, we've done hundreds of surveys, and 9 out of 10 people have muted their WhatsApp groups. Email open rate is about 6 to 14% on a very good day, and there are like millions of messages that are sent on social media. So we've left community leaders with these tools and expect them to use this to grow thriving communities. So there's a huge opportunity for us to transform how communities manage, how they manage their payments, how they run their events, and how knowledge is shared between communities. Our solution is called MemScribe, and MemScribe is Africa's first AI-powered community management platform. It allows community leaders to create, manage, and engage private communities of members. It could be customers, it could be employees, partners, or other stakeholders. With MemScribe, community leaders can now create smarter communities, build better engagement, and ultimately improve the well-being of every member of the community. How is this possible? We've built in a plethora of toolkits that can serve any community of any size, right? So we have the events toolkit. We're opportune to power about 3 events in this landmark center this year alone with attendees ranging from 500 to 7,000. And they had used exciting features like the registration, the agendas and speaker management, the exhibitors hub. We had the live feed for games. We had ads and document management, polls and surveys. These were some of the tools that they had used on our platform. We had things around community toolkit. We've had communities building, moving away from a 10,000 WhatsApp platform for jobs to MemScribe and easily manage the experience. One of the most exciting things for me is the monetization toolkit. Community leaders can now become self-sustaining and not have to depend on grants or funding from partners once in a year, because now they can get members to pay dues, they can sell tickets for their events, they can run marketplace deals, they can sell courses, they can promote, they can run ads in their communities without depending on Mark Zuckerberg and him taking all the money. And one of the final thing which I think I'll touch on is the marketplace. We want to connect communities to a marketplace of service providers, people who can come in and say, hey, take loans. I will give a story of my wife. She gave birth and I spent 0 in HMO, in payments because of her HMO. And I compared that to my friend who is a member of a gym association who was running around for 300,000 because his wife had given birth and she wasn't covered by any HMO plan. And I'd asked myself, he's a member of multiple communities in his life. Why can't they be organized enough to have a HMO coverage, and the platform was the problem. Our goal is our vision is a world where being part of or leading a community is more rewarding. And this is the right time for this because a lot of startups and businesses are moving away from the inauthentic social media marketing and trying to build real relationships with their customers. People are moving towards community-driven marketing because obviously it's expensive to capture our audience on regular social media platforms. So we're starting with the very big markets, and we're focusing on professional organizations, businesses, education, institutions as a first layer. How we make money is through various means. The first one is the subscription fees. The cheapest, one of the lowest plans on our platform is about $10,000 a month, which is about $100,000 a year if you pay yearly. And we're looking at getting 1,000 communities on the platform by the end of next year, which will be a revenue of $120 million into the business. We also get transaction fees when communities sell tickets, courses, membership dues, or get their members to buy digital services. We also offer premium services such as training, migrations, or community as a service on the platform. We have competitors, majorly globally, and we believe we will win against them because people who offer something similar are ranging in the price points of about $6,000 to $7,000 annually, and Memscribe is a lot more affordable considering the African context. On our roadmap, we've done pretty great in covering a lot of these important features that allow communities to thrive. And
Vincent, your time's up.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, well done, well done, well done.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, my name is Chinazoma Arinze. I'm waiting for the slides to come up. Okay, yes, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Arinze Chinazom, CEO and co-founder of Autogirl Limited. Let me start with a question. Have you ever visited an African country? The enchanting landscape, warm hospitality, and vibrant culture. Africa has so much to offer, yet many are faced with a common problem as soon as they land any African city. And that is, number one, lack of reliable transportation and lack of access to internet. And that is not the only problem that Africa has, because as you can see, there is very high inflation rates, and the level of unemployment is also extremely high. So what is the ideal solution? I have a dream of a more convenient and reliable future where expatriates, businesses, and tourists can move from point A to point B in every African city without any fear or without any hiccups. I dream of an Africa where African companies and Africans themselves get to earn not just a little extra hundreds of dollars, but thousands of dollars on the Autogirl platform by either being a car owner or a driver or a financier on the Autogirl platform. So what do we build? We are building what we call the Airbnb of vehicle rentals in Africa, where car owners get to monetize their vehicles on our platform, and expatriate businesses and tourists like some of you guys here get to rent clean quality vehicles and drivers on the Autogirl platform. We have a standard whereby drivers get to earn 300% above the current minimum wage. And car owners get to earn as much as 1.5 million naira monthly on the Autogirl platform. Our business model is very simple. We earn a modest 20% on every rental facilitated on our platform. Quite straightforward. Now, our market size was calculated with serious precision because I am a woman of numbers. We have over 30 million expatriates and tourists in Africa, according to Statista, and 60 million businesses estimated in Africa. And basically, if we can get just 1% of this wide target audience, we'll be having a colossal market size of about $1.3 billion. Because the average spend of the lifetime value of our current customers, according to our invoice, is about $1,500 annually. So our current traction, right here you see our GMV, but we earn a modest 20% on this. So that is actually our real revenue. Currently, we have done over 5,000 rentals. We have over 258 car owners earning reliable income on our platform month on month. We have over 79 drivers earning reliable income way above the minimum wage, 300% above the minimum wage. And then we have something that is very dear to my heart because it's called Auto Girl for a reason. I am passionate about bringing in inclusion into this highly male-dominated industry that is worth billions of dollars. So yes, I'm making my ladies make money. And we do this through what we call our Auto Women Empowerment Program. Auto Women Empowerment Program is a program whereby Auto Girl, as a company, has partnered with other companies to ensure that women learn important skills that they need to make money in this billion-dollar industry. We have 3 categories. We have mechanics, we have drivers, and of course, we have affiliate marketers. And those are people that earn money through referring the Auto Girl platform. Currently, we have empowered over 20 women, and like I said, we have over 79 drivers and over 258 car owners earning reliable income. The next stage for us is actually to build this into a web app. We have gone manual for too long using a small WordPress website, but we have been able to make this modest sum just on that website. So with an influx of cash to build a web app, to expand across different African countries, we'll definitely be able to reach our market size in nothing less than 5 years. This is the app we intend to build across Africa called the Movement app. A simple app where people lease their vehicles, earn money, and other people rent clean and verified vehicles. My leadership team consists of myself, Chinazo Marinze. I've had 5 years experience in the automotive industry, selling cars day to day on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria. And then on my 4th year, I was able to build this brand, which I would like to say currently has over 1,500 customers. And we currently have over 100 businesses on our platform using us. My co-founder is no other person than Ebuka Arinze. He has high operational experience, having worked with companies, various companies across Africa. And of course, my advisor, Tunji Oke, co-founder of Get Funded Africa. So that is us, and I would like to say the best time to invest in us was yesterday, but the next best time is now. Join us as we build the Airbnb of vehicle rentals in Africa. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. Hello, good day, everyone. My name is Mariam Matolagbe, and I am the founder of MyChoice Nigeria, and I'm super excited to be here today to share with you our mission at MyChoice Nigeria. But before I dive in, I would like to ask every one of us in this room a very crucial question. And the question is, how can we collectively reduce the use of single-use plastic bottles while still ensuring a pleasant dishwashing experience without any skin irritations? Look around you, I'm sure you can see single-use plastic bottles. And only 9% of these plastic bottles is actually being recycled. Okay. In Nigeria, there are over 200 million residents, and dishwashing is a usual daily chore in every household. However, it's surprising to see that innocent individuals like Nola, my year 1 roommate in the university, suffer from itchy hands from their regular dish soap. Unfortunately, this dishwashing liquid not only contributes to excess plastic waste in our environment, but also contains harsh chemicals that irritate the user's skin. Today, I am more than happy to introduce you to a good news that will help us drastically reduce the use of these single-use plastic bottles. Today, we are not just here as a company that produce, package, distributes, and refill less toxic dishwashing liquid, but we are here to rewrite the narrative of how we think about dishwash liquid. And this is what we call the Eco Top-Up. I introduce you to My Choice Eco Top-Up, which is made with 5 times skin-friendly formula. We produce our products from fermented enzymes, cocoa-derived oil, and vegetable glycerin. And here is how it works. The Eco Top-Up. Simply come with your empty bottles, gallon, container, or whatever to our Eco Top-Up and place it on the refill platform. Indicate the volume you want to be refilled, and that's all. Watch your container filled up with our superior grease-cutting dishwashing liquid and 5 times skin-friendly formula. Pay and take it to your kitchen, then you come back again. We are here to help you reuse your plastic bottles and repeat that process over and over again. Here is our packaged product. Our dishwashing liquid is in 3 varieties: the My Choice Classic, Lemon, and Mint. And we also have a My Choice dish sponge that is all natural. I'm an agricultural student, and I looked at how I can leverage what I have studied in university with my passion, which is dishwashing. Now, this dish sponge is made from plant, 100% plant fiber. And then I in my 100 level, I learned tailoring. So I do that with my sewing machine. The market is vast. And in 2019, it was valued at 18 billion USD, which is projected to reach 22.4 billion USD by 2025. At My Choice, we are determined to capture 5% of this market share, which is equivalent to about 2.7 billion naira by 2028. Our primary target is households, particularly women, and food establishments. We offer refill service for B2B and B2C at 950 naira per liter. And you, as a customer, you save 200 naira on every refill. How beautiful is that? We aim to reach more households. Okay. Since inception, we have produced over 10,000 liters, and we hope to reach more households across Nigeria by doing more social media campaigns, sponsored ads, free samples for trials, because I know Nigerians, we like free samples, right? So we have that small package. And in-house to house campaigns. We also have special offers. This is, you are sure you can bring 25 people to refill in our points, right? So we offer you 2 liters free on every 25 liters, on every 25 customers you bring for refill. We are in the midst of a competition, yes. Money Fresh, Mama Lemon, Too Sure, Viva, I'm sure everybody here knows. But how do we stand out? How is My Choice different from these well-known brands? We are committed to sustainability and your well-being. So I will put it to you quickly that how we outshine these market leaders is basically our 5 times skin-friendly formula and our Eco Care. We have witnessed incredible growth over time from our packaged product, and we have reached over 5,200 end users, generating about over 7.5 million naira since 2020, which have been invested in purchasing more machineries, our NAFDAC approval certifications, and the likes. We have a diverse team that drives the company towards growth, from ideas to product development to customer service and operations. With the funding we'll be receiving, we plan to establish 2 more eco stations across Lagos State. We plan to conduct sensitization work, marketing, and advertisement. With this plan achieved, we project a revenue of 16.8 million naira in the next 12 months. And this is it. Our first year projection shows that if we can refill 16.5 liters per day in one refill station, In 1 month, we have 492 refills. And if you multiply this by 12 months in a year, that is 5,904 refills. Multiply by 950 naira per liter. That is 5,608,000. And multiply by the 3 refill stations. That is the funding we'll be receiving today. Adding those 2 refill stations to the one we have to be launching soon. That's about 16.82 billion naira. Rounding up, making kitchens cleaner, hands happier, and our planet greener. This is our promise. With so much joy in me, permit me to invite you on this transformative journey today because we cannot do it alone. Thank you so much.
Yes. This is one of the most difficult jobs on planet Earth. As a matter of fact, I call it a blood sport. It's a very difficult job. It's difficult for many reasons. You have to think of a great idea. You have to solve that idea. You've got to find a way to scale it, sustain it. And after you do all that and you survive, then you've got to survive and survive and survive again. So it's tough, right? And if you had asked me 3 weeks ago whether tough this in, I'd say, well, not that quite tough. Now I know it's a war game, right? So another round of applause for these young entrepreneurs. I'd like to thank the convener, Linda, obviously DMBC and the entire team of DBNC to provide a platform. I was saying earlier today that, one of the blood that's required to create entrepreneurs is always money. No matter what you say, to make a business, you need money. The hardest thing to get is at the beginning, money. So when someone comes up and says, I'm going to give you a grant, I'm going to give you a loan, I'm going to give you an investment, I'm going to give you a platform, it's gold dust. Use it well, never lose it. So Linda, thank you very much for that. So unfortunately, at times like this, there are winners and there are losers, right? But the good thing about this today is there are no losers. They're all winners. Everybody has learned. But having said that, we have come to the decision it was fairly consensus. Thought to ourselves, which of these businesses do you understand the most? Which of these businesses will you invest in first? Can you see the root of every kobo you put in, how it comes out as 10 kobo, right? And how long will it take? Obviously, the thing about the passion and the resilience and stuff was very important. So, the good news, there is, I'll first of all say that one of the businesses that presented didn't win, yes, but one of the judges has personally said they would like to invest in that business. So a round of applause. That particular judge understands the business and just feels they can add the sort of value to that business that will stretch it and make it go far, which is why I said there are never, ever any losers. So if you can please put your hands together for Menscribe. You didn't win, but you got some money. So lastly, the business that we thought has the best chance of immediate success, that we felt solved a real problem. I don't know what you all feel here, but without much further ado, the last is never the least, Scrap Top.
Please calm down. I know, yes, we have a winner. Please calm down. I would just like to thank our headline sponsors who made this possible in partnership with my company, Morizandra Solutions. So we have two companies, AA Foundation, that's the Augustine Avuri Foundation, and my business, Morizandra Solutions. So I would like to present to you this check of 5 million naira. And I don't know if we still have speakers. Yes, we have BMG. Please, could you join us on stage? We have the past speaker, Priye. Please join us on stage. I hope I haven't missed anyone else. Okay.
Stand up for the champions, stand up.
Okay, while we're waiting for them, let's allow her say something. Okay, you have something to say, right? Okay.
I want to say a very big thank you to you. Thank you so much for giving us this platform. Thank you for everyone who has been here to sponsor this doing business in Nigeria. You've given opportunities to people who ordinarily would just dream and not do anything about it. So I'm really, really grateful that we have local dreamers and local partners who are helping those dreamers to thrive. And I know this is going to be better in the coming years. And Scratch Nigeria Limited is a business you should look out for. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was built to be the best, number one and nothing less. Lead me to my destiny. I have waited patiently. I have vision, oh I believe. I know I can count on me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions.
So
Stand
can we
up.
have all the finalists on stage with us? Because like Pio mentioned, they're all winners, right? They have learned something here today. So let's recognize them. Let's bring them on stage, please. Otto Girl, Mark Choice, and Mems Pride.
Here we go, it's getting close. Now it's just who wants it most. It's just life, that's how it is. 'Cause we have our strengths and weaknesses. Oh, I have vision, oh, can't you see? I'm on the move, make way for me. So stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up for the champions, for the champions. Stand up, stand up, stand up for the champions, for the
Thank you so much.
champions. Stand up.
Can we please have the gifts for the judges? Just to say thank you for honoring our invitation. AY, this is your second time with DBNC and the second time as a sponsor. So just a handshake for you. For Pio, I think Pio is now a family member of DBNC. Pio, I think right now you are a family member of DBNC because Pio has spoken as a keynote speaker. Last year he was a judge. This year he's a judge. Last year he was a sponsor. This year he's a sponsor. So, exactly. So, we feel like Pio has been a part of our journey. So, we appreciate when we have repeat sponsors. Landmark, Aravo, just amazing. So, to all our partners, collaborator sponsors, we say thank you. And again, for honoring our invitation.
So, good evening, everyone. And I mean, basically, what I'll just say is a big wow. You know, it's been a day. I'm sure we've learned. I would love to summarize today in 2 words: insightful and impactful. You know, it's been very insightful and impactful. Special thanks. I want to first and foremost start, profound thanks to the keynote speakers. Very thought-provoking presentations. We had insights, real-life stories about people, industry captains, people that have really been doing the business. They know the grit, and they've been able to share their knowledge with us. Likewise, of course, the panelists. We enjoyed thoroughly the conversations on topics, that we could all relate with as regards business. The moderators, our esteemed and incorruptible judges, the teachers that educated us and enlightened us with their businesses. We thank you all for coming. And also the sponsors and exhibitors. This event, of course, wouldn't have been without their support, and their presence. We are genuinely and, thoroughly grateful to you all. I also like to mention the organizers and volunteers. So basically the DBNC family. Putting this together wasn't any easy feat. Lots of hours and days and months of working, to make sure that the event could be successful. It's really and genuinely appreciated. I also want to make, just one second, just to make sure I don't miss out anybody. I also want to, of course, talk about the delegates and the attendees, everybody that made it possible, to come and listen. The essence of the conference, really, beyond what we hear, is actually to network. Learn insights from people that have done it and be able to form collaborations. My plea is that even though the conference may be coming to an end, the journey surely isn't. Let's make sure that when we leave here, it doesn't just end with the exchange of cards and brochures. We keep those networks up, we keep those connections and those collaborations. Lastly, I would also want to mention and thank our MC, amiable MC Otus. Thank you for doing what you do very well. We really appreciate you. And lastly, all this definitely could not have happened without the vision and inspiration of the convener, Miss Linda Uneze. Linda, thank you so much. We look forward, of course, to greater and bigger conferences as we try as much as possible to see to it that genuinely all of us here work towards making doing business in Nigeria much more profitable. So before I wish all of us, of course the party is just beginning, there's still an after party, I'll please appeal that can all the members of the DBNC committee, the DBNC family, can they please come all on stage? Are they here? Please, I would love to have you all on stage. Likewise, all the past speakers and the ones that, of course, spoke today as well. Can we all be on stage? The DBNC family, where are you guys? Come right on stage. Yep, I can see you all. And, of course, yes. Yes, great. Where's the rest? Okay. Edore?
Okay. So there are certain people that I have to mention, even though they are externals. Where's Edore? I saw her hiding. Edore, please, could you come out? Where's Choma as well? Edore, I already saw you. Please come out. Where's Choma? Edore, I can see you. I can see your head. Are you being shy? Okay, so where's Hanatu as well? No, I think Hanatu excused herself. Okay, so before you take a picture of us, so many people on the team that are working behind the scene. They're in different locations, right? There's someone hiding behind. I think she's really shy. Adora, she put this amazing venue together. We have Hanatu, we have Chioma Mbanugo, and so many others. There's Val. He's working at the other hall. I hope I'm not missing anyone else. There's Efe Turi. I don't know if Efe is here. She managed the communications team. Is she here? Oh, she has. Okay, she's left. So there's so many people that are working behind the scene. I just want to say thank you to everyone in the DBNC team that has made this possible. Amobi has been very, very instrumental to the success of and the growth of DBNC over the years, heading the advisory committee. Priya as well, always giving us her support every year. And to my team, Anastasia, Ogene, Ayo, Omolola, and so many others. Like I mentioned, there's Edore, there's Val, there's Efeturi, there's Ola, there's Chioma, and everyone that has just been very supportive. So thank you very much. I appreciate. Yes. So let's take a picture together.
So before we step into the after party venue, we want to say a big thank you. We have a little gift, just something we put together for you. And Anna is going to present it to you. So on behalf of the DBNC family, we say thank you, we say well done, and we say we'll see you next year.